All right. What is up, guys? Today or tonight, we're going to figure out how to model this Candela shell, is what I think they call it, after the architect Felix Candela. Don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but let's go with it. And so yeah, it's this cool pavilion looking structure, and we'll go quickly over how to do this. We start right away by drawing a circle. I just select the circle tool, and then we want it to have a radius of 50, and we want it to be in the center of our starting of our grid. So I can just actually immediately type in 0, 0. It will get us on there, and then I can just enter 50 after that. My units are feet already, so it jumped to that perfectly. And then if you look at this image, it has it lifts up in 8 points, but then it also lifts down in 8 points of a total of 16 points that we want to control with our circle. So usually we can turn on points, and there's already so you can see there's already some sort of points already on it, but we can rebuild it to have more. So if I type in rebuild, and then right away I can make my points whatever I want. I can make it to 16, and our degree is it 3? That just means there's going to be 2 bends in it. It's bending in 2 directions. In this way, it's almost like a sine curve. If you guys know math, hopefully you know math. So yeah, let's just go with 16, and it's going to now, when I click on these control points again, it's going to have 16 dots on my line, which is exactly what we want. This next part I'm going to do in perspective, because I think it makes a little bit more sense to show you this way. So now we're going to select every other control point. I can go around holding shift. I'm going to select all of these just like this. Cool. And then I can simply just lift these, and it's going to be the top of my curves. I can simply lift these by just holding and dragging up this blue arrow for the Z direction to about somewhere in here. Awesome. And then the next point is this flares out a little bit. It's not just straight up. Right now we have it just straight up, but it flares out. So if I actually just grab onto those same points that we lifted, should have done this before I unselected it. If I just grab onto those same points we already had selected, there's a few different ways you can do this. You can scale it by typing scale and then doing a reference point. The fastest way, honestly, is just by grabbing this green box and holding shift, and it's just going to extend that out like that. Now it's what we want it to be. And so, yeah, the next step is basically making a framework to loft to build a surface out of. If you think of this structure almost like a tent, if you guys have ever gone tent camping, you need like a whole bunch of pole frames to hold up your tent, and that's essentially what we're going to make right now is the tent poles, in a way. So for that part, we can go into our top view. It's probably easiest to understand in our top view. We can select our, for me, I have to have my control points off to select my outside, but I can type in scale, and then right away up top here in this command box, make sure you turn on copy to say yes. Usually it says no. Turn it to say yes. And that's just going to make it so every time we scale, a copy is left there instead of deleting the original. So I can click on, I guess it says origin point. I can type in 0, 0 because I'm doing it from the center, and I'm going to go straight out to one of my points here and then bring it in, and we're going to do this 4 times. So there's going to be a total of 4. So 1, 2, 3, and let's go like somewhere here. Enter. Cool. So what that looks like is exactly this. Awesome. And now one final thing is I'm going to put a point right in the center. So if I just click on this point thing, and then type in 0, 0, whoops, I typed in 0, but type in 0, 0, and then it's going to put it right in the middle. Okay, so from here we have all of our framework now. I'm looking at this from the right point of view, but we want to lift everything except the outside up a little bit, so there's actually room to occupy underneath this tent. So if I hold shift and select every line on the inside, including our point, and then this is the method I think is easiest to do this, to lift everything a little bit. So we want to lift this a little bit higher, but not higher than the outside. Do not go higher than the outside. So about there is good. Yeah, right there. If I hold the control and click on the furthest outside now, it will go away. And we're going to lift this. If I hold control and click on the furthest out, it'll go away. Lift this. Hold control. And now there's just my point left, and we're going to lift that to about there. So yeah, in theory it should go high, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, point. And so this is lifted off the ground. Someone could walk into here, theoretically. Going back into my perspective now. Now we can loft this. So I can type in loft. So select my curves. Going to select them. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm even going to select my point in the middle. I'm going to hit enter. And then a good sign that you did this right is if there's a perfect line with arrows all facing the same way. And then I can hit enter again. And voila, look at that. Cool. And a good thing to do is immediately make a surface for curves, or make a layer, sorry, for curves. You can see over here in my menu. Make a layer for surface. I'm even going to make a layer for pipe, because we're going to pipe this actually. And cool, so if I assign this to my surface layer, I can select it. I can select the surface, and I can go down here to default and make it surface. Now it's into my surface layer. And for a little bit, we're going to actually hide that. If I click this light bulb, it will hide it. Awesome. Now we want to pipe all of these, just like we did with a chair in the first assignment. We can select all of them, and I can just type in pipe. And then it says radius 1. I don't think I want it that big. I'm going to do a radius of let's do a radius of 0.5 feet. Cool. So I piped them all, pretty big pipes. If we wanted, we could make that smaller, but just for the purpose of showing this, that's totally fine. And yeah, so there, and then if I turn my surface back on, there's the pipes with my surface going through it. Another thing we want to show in this tutorial is contours and how contours can work. This is especially important with landscaping and landscape architects. If you have a surface that you want to create contours on, this is a really important command actually. So I can actually select the surface I want to contour, which is this one. I can literally type in contour, and then it says contour base point. We want that to be 0, 0, and then there's two ways we can do this. We can it's basically finding a contour direction. We can go in the X direction, which is this, or we can go in the Y direction by in the Z direction. I'm sorry. To go in the Z direction, we can go into this front view and then just draw a line up. So I can draw my line up like you're seeing here, right here, and then I can just click up here, and then it says right here, distance between contours. Right now it's 1 foot. That's fine for me. I can just hit yes, and it's going to generate contours, and you can see what that looks like right here. So all these lines, it's basically contouring what this would look like, creating valleys and ridges with contours. And we can do the same thing by going in the X direction. It's going to generate different lines. Do it however you want. And this is showing that this is the peak, essentially, or a flat point. Okay. Now, we're going to pretty much complete it by making it an occupiable space, looking like there's windows almost. Closing it off, essentially, is what we are going to do here. And one thing we can do is turn this off. We can select all of our pipes. And we can assign that into our pipe layer. Awesome. That way everything's just like organized. Cool. And then so this part I think is fun. We can go to this box and we can click on that, and then we're going to go actually to make a sphere, and we can just immediately click on this one, and we don't need to go to the drop down menu. Sphere is asking for a center point, which we have. We can just click on this center point, and then it's asking for a radius, and we want it to be the radius that we already have, which is 50 feet, and it's going to look like this. So cool, but we don't want the top to show, and we don't want below the ground plane to show. So we are basically going to cut it off. There's a few different ways to do that, but the easiest way for me is trim, and we're going to select our surface first and then type trim, and then I'm going to click on what I don't want, which is the top of this, and it went away, and I can hit enter and end that. So now this is just only underneath it. Cool, but we still don't want this huge lump to show. We want basically from this grid up to show. So we can make a surface we're going to make a rectangle first. We're going to make a rectangle that's 100 by 100, which is the size of our grid. 100 by 100. Awesome. And then I'm going to move this and making sure my center point is on down here. The center is checked. Navigate around it until it says center. So now I'm moving it by the center, and I'm going to type in 0, 0. So now we have this rectangle around our shape. And I'm going to make this a surface. There's a million ways you can make this a surface. I just like to, this is the almost the easiest one. There's no command you have to really remember. I can just click on this. It says surface from 3 or 4 points. I can just click on it, and then I can just go around and clicking on my points. It's basically building a surface, and it just built me a surface. You can see. Cool. And then we're going to delete the bottom of this sphere just like how we did with the top. I'm going to select this first, and then I'm going to type in trim, and then I'm going to click on what I don't want, which is the bottom of this. And it is gone. And there you go. It completely closed off like pavilion almost. The last thing, if we really wanted, we can type in dome, and we can make this the dome. So now everything is literally in its own layer. But yeah, that is how you model this Candela shell pavilion. So hopefully that was helpful, and